Tonight, take two. It's the second night of the first Democratic debate. And now come the frontrunners, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. After a gentle start last night, tonight could be more combative. In all, another 10 candidates on stage, joining Biden and Sanders, Buttigieg, Harris, Gillibrand, and 5 more, giving the public another broad look at an unprecedented Democratic field.
This is an ABC News special preview to the first Democratic debates.
I believe in an America where health care is a right and not a privilege for just those who can afford it.
4 years of Donald Trump will be viewed as an aberration in American history. 8 years will fundamentally change who we are as a nation.
We really need presidential leadership to do more of not just the policy part of the job, but the part of the job that has to do with holding people together and calling people to their highest values.
When it comes to starting a family, for our family and every family in America, it's my wife's body, it's a woman's body, it's her choice.
This is not just about reproductive freedom, it's not just about health, it's about women and power. That is what is going on here.
The American people want change, they want real change, and we have got to provide that change.
Live from Miami, here is ABC News correspondent Aaron Katersky.
10 more candidates, 2 more hours. An unprecedented field of Democratic candidates debates for the second straight night here in Miami. Good to have you with us on this Thursday night. ABC's Devin Dwyer is here, and tonight the frontrunners are on the stage, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, potentially changing the dynamics of this debate.
Yeah, that's right. We will see if all three of those men, the 3 Bs, if you will, which run the gamut of the Democratic Party in ideology, personal story, and age, most importantly, if they will respond to last night's candidates, last night's clashes on immigration, healthcare at all, or whether they just ignore that first night crowd, take each other on. We know Bernie Sanders is known for some of those sharp elbows, and of course, all eyes on Joe Biden tonight. This is his big debate. He has perhaps the most experience of anybody on that stage tonight, 46 years in politics. We will see how he fares. We're told, Aaron, he is not expected to come into this room tonight. We're standing in the spin room, usually a sign of frontrunners. They sort of fly above. We'll see if he flies above tonight.
But he has never debated as the frontrunner. Does that change the dynamics at all?
That's right. He is debated as a vice presidential candidate, as a senator. We will see tonight. He's got some challenges on his plate, starting with those comments that drew so much fire in the past week or so ago about his relationships with segregationist senators when he was in Congress. We'll also likely see him challenged on his position on abortion, which he's shifted in the past few days. Plagiarism, which sunk one of his earliest presidential campaigns, has come back and reared its ugly head. And of course, with some women on the stage tonight, and Kamala Harris, the only woman of color, we know that she feels very passionately about women's rights, the Me Too movement. Joe Biden has found himself tripped up on some of those issues as well. So a lot of eyes, a lot of knives potentially out for Joe Biden tonight as well.
I want to pull ABC News political analyst Steve Roberts into the conversation, who's been with us every step of the way as we cover presidential politics early in this season. Steve, there's also a question for Joe Biden about argument. Why is he running now at 76 years old?
Well, it's a very good question. And look, he's done very well in the polls, but that's largely a function of name recognition. It's largely a function of fondness. People remember the Obama years very well, particularly African-American voters, strongly in the polls for Biden. But as he enters this debate tonight, there are a lot of warning signs about Biden. ABC, an NBC Wall Street Journal poll the other day asked voters, are you enthusiastic about Biden? Only 13% said they were enthusiastic. People like him, but do they love him? Does he generate the same kind of enthusiasm, the same kind of excitement that fueled the successful campaigns of people like Bill Clinton and Barack Obama? In addition to that, the most resonant word in the American political lexicon is change. You just played a clip of Bernie Sanders using that word over and over again. Joe Biden talks about change, but it's backward change. It's returning to an earlier America. It's not a forward-looking change. And every successful Democratic candidate in the post-war years, whether it's Obama, Clinton, Carter, Kennedy, all talking about forward-looking change. And at his age, he's 30 years older than the average age of those 4 Democrats when they were elected president. So even though he's doing very well in the polls, there are a lot of warning flags up there about the Biden candidacy, Aaron.
All right, ABC News political analyst Steve Roberts with us all night as we preview the second night of the first Democratic presidential debate, less than an hour away. Nobody knows the Biden campaign better than ABC's Molly Nagel, who has spent her day in and day out with the campaign. What do you do today?
Joe Biden got ready for the debate today. He was here in the at the debate center doing a walkthrough, as all of the candidates do. Our Mary Bruce caught up with him outside of that, tried to ask him a few questions, but you know, he had sunglasses on, peak aviator mode. He seemed relaxed, and you know, according to his campaign, he was going to enjoy some downtime with his family. His granddaughters are here along with his wife Jill, just kind of getting ready for the debate ahead.
No hint as to how he may approach his competitors on this stage?
Well, Joe Biden has made a pledge that he's not going to speak ill of other Democrats. So that's something he's been very clear about from really his first interview with Robin Roberts when he got into this race. One thing that we do need to keep in mind, though, is that he's not going to let his attacks on his record go unchecked. The campaign official told me that Biden is has been studying his record. He's read up on it. He's ready to go. If a challenge were to come his way, he's ready to defend that record. So while he's not going to, do personal attacks on his candidates, don't expect him to, sit back on the sidelines and simply let people go after him. He's the front runner. He's going to have the target on his back, but he's ready to defend himself.
And that record, Devin, as you mentioned, is what's gotten him into trouble over the last couple of weeks.
That's right. We've seen a lot of debate over his position on the 1994 crime bill, which was something he championed. We know that particularly among the African American community, which has tended to support Joe Biden, has been roundly critical of him on pushing that law. It ended up with those high mandatory minimum sentences that resulted in mass incarcerations of people. He's since walked that back. That's been a controversial thing. You also saw his role in those confirmation hearings for Justice Clarence Thomas, his treatment of Anita Hill back in the spotlight, back being scrutinized under the lens of 2019, the era that we're in now. So he's certainly going to be subject to a lot of criticism, both for his record, for his performance, for his age. I think one big theme you'll see tonight is potentially are some attacks from some of the younger candidates on stage as to whether he's tone deaf. Is he really with it? Does he get the moment? Can he capture the energy? And as Steve Roberts was just talking about there, is the Biden buzz right now really just simply built on this idea that he is best positioned to beat Trump? Or is there any buzz at all about his ideas? We will see him push those ideas tonight.
Yeah, Molly, is he prepared to take on President Trump? Is he prepared to show that he's got the goods?
Definitely. I think that while Joe Biden has made it clear he's not going to go after Democrats, he has his eyes set on President Trump. We're already seeing him tweeting right now, calling the president the divider in chief. Now, this is kind of a significant thing. The Biden campaign has largely refrained from hitting the president while he's abroad. They are saying that a debate is different, that this is, a different type of circumstances. But I do expect that the Vice President Biden will put his full focus on the president and try and talk about how he would move the country forward in a different way, talking more about the future of the party and of his policy ideas as opposed to his past.
And Steve Roberts, what about this idea of Biden wearing well? How does he overcome that?
Well, it's a big problem. Let's remember, this man has run for president twice before, and he was a disastrous presidential candidate. He couldn't get out of his own way. He made a lot of mistakes. People forget, he ran in the Iowa caucuses in 2008 against Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and he got less than 1% of the vote in the Iowa caucuses and had to drop out of the race the day after. This man does not have a particularly good record as a presidential candidate. Fine senator, elected to the Senate 6 times, but that's very different. And I think the other problem that he's running into is as when he talks about returning to a time when there was much more comedy in Capitol Hill, when there was much more a sense of compromise. That is not a message, and we saw it last night in the debates. That is not a message that a lot of Democrats are eager to hear right now. And so he might be out of tune with the mainstream of his party, Aaron.
ABC News political analyst Steve Roberts. More from him as we preview night 2 of the first Democratic debate here in Miami. We'll talk about Bernie Sanders, and we'll talk about those on the outskirts of this debate stage as we continue our coverage. Stay with us. Our thanks to Steve and Devin and Molly. I'm Aaron Katursky. You're listening to live coverage from ABC News.
ABC News, straightforward.
Just behind me there's a rescue happening. A truck driver who was stuck in the flood.
News is happening live everywhere right now. So take me there live.
Behind me now, I can see police pushing through.
The last 18 seconds is the most critical.
Look at this. This is just incredible.
Don't worry about having perfect hair at a perfect desk. Just let me have it live, raw, real.
That's Fisher number 20, and it has been putting out more lava than the Rio Grande puts out water. I want to show you something. All of this has been flowing steadily into the ocean.
That's the promise of ABC News Live. So when the biggest stories are playing out live, you're right there.
These streets were almost overrun by Houthi rebels, and if you look, you can see the intensity of the battle.
We're on the South Korean side, but where that gravel ends and the sand begins, that's North Korea.
The groundbreaking exclusives.
You trust him?
I do trust him, yeah. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
Remarkable access, stunning visuals, unmatched, straightforward reporting. From around the country to all across the planet. Breaking news live.
There's an active shooter situation in South Florida.
From the scene.
This is the 101 freeway right now near La Crucita. Look at those massive flames.
Taking the audience with you. Go there with ABC News Live.
We are here at the Royal Wedding.
And here they come, right here.
Around us.
It's just like out of a movie.
See it, feel it, understand it, connect to it.
Your babies are safe, and you're safe.
I'm good. ABC News Live. The possibilities are limitless.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch every day.
Doctors. Potatoes. Ismail? Yes. David.
Over ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home.
David, nice to meet you.
This was your view.
My favorite view.
These guys appreciate it.
Tomorrow, kick off your weekend with Pop Idol superstar Adam Lambert. In a live summer concert from Central Park, it's Adam Lambert. Tomorrow only on
Good Morning, America.
Presented by King's Hawaiian.
Listen, it is very rare that you hear of a father reeling in his own children to rob banks with him.
How did such a normal family turn into bank robbers, waving pistols and driving getaway cars?
They knew exactly what they were doing.
Now, astonishing new interviews, new details, and just when you think you know the whole story,
It doesn't end there.
A Family Affair, the 2020 documentary, Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC.
Imagine a good morning spent with friends. Imagine knowing what's coming next in the day ahead. Well, I get to live this each morning together with you, and that's what makes it such a Good Morning America.
You're listening to an ABC News special, preview to the first Democratic debates. Live from Miami, here is ABC News correspondent Aaron Katersky.
We're about 40 minutes away from night 2 of the Democratic debate here in Miami. We've told you that Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders going to be at the center of the stage, but flanking them, Kirsten Gillibrand and Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg and a couple of candidates that nobody has ever heard of. I want to pull ABC's Brad Milkey, who hosts our daily podcast, Start Here. He's here in Miami with us. Brad, Marianne Williamson and Andrew Yang are both going to be on that stage. What are they going to do with this moment up there with the former sitting vice president?
Well, unlike a lot of these other candidates, they're not going to be talking about their political records. They're not going to be talking about the votes that they've accomplished because they haven't had any. They haven't been voted to office before. But they have staked out a few key issues that they think are going to resonate with the American people. And I actually spoke to Marianne Williamson several weeks ago when there was this huge debate in Washington over, of all things, reparations for slavery, because racial justice has actually been a signature for her. She's an author. She's written extensively about it. And I asked her, you're a white woman. Why are you the person who has taken it upon yourself to sort of do this explaining to the American people? She said, I might not be the best person to bring this up, but I'm out here. I'm running for president, and this is important to me. She has this tight relationship with Oprah Winfrey that brought her to the forefront of many Americans' eyes. But these are the type of answers that you might not hear from your average politician that you can expect to be batted around tonight, because you got Andrew Yang as well. And he is not quite as rando as you might think, Aaron. You know, the first Asian American candidate, he once joked that he just wants to be, the Asian guy right next to Joe Biden. But lo and behold, he's not on the very outside of the stage, Aaron. He is just a couple podiums away from Joe Biden. So he's getting closer to his wish than he might have expected a few weeks back.
And I heard him joke the other day that he's got nothing to lose because who's going to take pot shots at the guy running sixth? ABC's Devin Dwyer is here. There are also a couple of other interesting dynamics on that stage. Two Coloradans, one who used to work for the other in Michael Bennett, used to be the chief of staff for John Hickenlooper.
That's right. And these guys are moderates in this race, so sort of vying for that Joe Biden vote. And what will be fascinating to watch tonight, for both of those guys and Joe Biden, is how they go after somebody like Bernie Sanders, who's center stage. We saw a similar dividing line play out last night, this ideological divide, this war that's going on, if you will, right now within the Democratic Party. How big, how bold do you go? And there was a lot of calling out, a lot of debate, a lot of elbows turned last night over that issue. Tonight promises to be even more dynamic because of the Bernie Sanders factor. And guys like Bennett, Hickenlooper, Biden are all going to be right there in the mix. The guy I'm watching tonight, though, Aaron, is Pete Buttigieg. We've talked a lot about him. He's a fascinating character, the youngest guy on the stage tonight at age 37, the only with 7 years executive experience. He was a mayor, albeit of a small town, the only veteran on stage tonight, and somebody that speaks 5 languages, has gone to Harvard, Rhodes Scholar, knows how to debate, constantly looks comfortable speaking substance in public. It's going to be fascinating to see him go toe-to-toe with some of these guys.
But he's coming off a rough week.
That's right. We saw the mayor off the campaign trail, really, which is unusual in the lead-up to a major debate. He was back home in South Bend, Indiana, dealing with a police shooting of an unarmed black man, something that we have seen repeatedly over this country. It has ignited protests. It's been a flashpoint among African-American voters, so he could get attacked for that. We saw Bill de Blasio, of all people, throw a veiled jab at Pete Buttigieg last night in the debate, so certainly not off the radar that Pete Buttigieg could get some pressure tonight from some of those on the wings of this stage.
I want to pull into the conversation our friend Claire Malone from our partners at 538. Claire, you've been studying some of the numbers from night one of the Democratic debate. Who won that one?
It's a great question. We've been doing a tracking poll, and actually, Julian Castro had a very good night. I would say Julian Castro, Cory Booker, and Elizabeth Warren all really came out well from that debate. And we're sort of tracking favorability ratings before and after the debate. Castro saw a whopping 19-point jump in his favorabilities. Cory Booker saw +10 on favorabilities, and Elizabeth Warren was +8. Someone like Beto O'Rourke, who I think people have been hyping since his Senate campaign, didn't do quite as well. But those three really benefited, I think, from last night's debate.
And Devin, Julian Castro had that moment where he was able to talk about the heartbreaking photograph of a dead migrant father and daughter. He said it should piss us all off. And then he went on and had a policy fix in saying that these kinds of crossings should be decriminalized.
A provocative policy fix that almost immediately became a litmus test on the debate stage last night. These are the kinds of surprises we look out for, and it certainly did him well, as we just heard Claire talk about. But this idea of decriminalizing border crossings, quite controversial. We saw a number of candidates on the stage last night tiptoe around that one, likely to come back again tonight. But as you say, those style points are so important in a debate like this. We saw Beto O'Rourke speaking Spanish, Cory Booker as well. We saw Amy Klobuchar drop those canned lines, all foam, no beer. So those sorts of things will be on full display tonight as well, and they're almost as important as some of the policy ideas. Voters want to see someone look presidential, feel like they connect with them, and that's what they'll be looking for tonight.
Claire, who else benefited benefited from the format, benefited from the exchange with their 9 other fellow Democrats?
Well, I think, people who no one knew about, someone like Tim Ryan, no matter what pundits might have said about maybe he gaffed a little bit on stage talking about the wars in the Middle East, at least people saw and met Tim Ryan. So he got a couple, points bump in the polls. Tulsi Gabbard got a couple bumps point in the favorability polls. So, I think for people who no one really knew, it's the old adage of putting a face to a name. It helped some of those lower tier candidates. But I think going back to Castro, he was someone who, he's obviously not an unknown, served in the Obama administration, a very credentialed person, but maybe someone who wasn't in the top tier conversation. He's really the kind of candidate who I think can benefit from these performances because he is polished and a politician, but just needed that kind of bump as far as Americans actually knowing who he was.
And Claire, from that description, it sounds like maybe someone like a Kirsten Gillibrand could benefit in the same way. Let's pull Steve Roberts into the conversation, the ABC News political analyst. Steve, Gillibrand's campaign hasn't really gotten a look yet. Does it deserve one?
Well, yes, it does. She's been a very successful politician in New York. It's a very important state. It's going to be a Democratic state. It's not as if she comes from Pennsylvania or Wisconsin. But she does deserve another look. She has underperformed so far. And what Claire was pointing out is very interesting because the impact of the debate does not end tonight. It doesn't end with whoever watches live. These clips, Amy Klobuchar talking about all foam and no beer, those moments get repeated endlessly. They've been repeated today on news shows and news clips, and I promise you, Amy Klobuchar is already cutting TV ads, cutting online ads, fundraising appeals, using those moments to try to boost her candidacy. What you have right now is something that's sometimes called the invisible primary. Months and months before a real voter votes in Iowa, the primary is going on, and the two metrics are raising money and getting media attention. So someone like Gillibrand, it's not just what she might say tonight, but it's how her campaign can then use those moments to attract more TV attention and reach out to voters and say, press that button, that big red donate button, and give us a chance to be in the game. And that's one of the important dimensions of these debates, because these clips have a viral shelf life far beyond after the lights go out tonight, Aaron.
And in that same vein, Kamala Harris and Eric Swalwell, the two Californians that are going to be on that debate stage, both of them also looking for that kind of breakout moment.
They sure are. Eric Swalwell actually wandering this spin room hall a short time ago. A relative newcomer to the race. He was one of the last to get in, but somebody who's looked to shake things up, be a bit of a moderate from California. He's somebody who's on the Intelligence Committee. He staked his campaign, at least in part, on this push for impeachment, for investigating the president, someone who's been very integral in that investigation. That's another topic that didn't come up extensively last night that we could see raised again tonight. A lot of passion in this night two crowd for impeachment, so it's worth keeping your eyes on that, Aaron.
Devin Dwyer and Claire Malone and Steve Roberts. We're a half an hour away from night 2 of the first Democratic debate. 10 more candidates, 2 more hours, 60-second responses, 30-second follow-ups, many more minutes ahead to get to know this huge Democratic field. I'm Aaron Katursky. You're listening to live coverage from ABC News.
ABC News, straightforward.
Doctors. Potatoes. Ismail? David.
Over ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home. David, nice to meet you.
This was your view.
My favorite view.
These guys appreciate it.
In times like these, the news-making events happen here. ABC News.
President Trump meeting face-to-face with one of the world's most brutal dictators, Kim Jong-un.
The president.
You trust him? I do trust him, yeah. I think he trusts me, and I trust him.
Ivanka Trump.
I have to ask you about your emails. Your father had taken Hillary Clinton to task for this.
There just is no equivalency.
So the idea of lock her up doesn't apply to you?
No.
Comey.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss?
Very strange.
Michelle Obama.
What do you wish you could tell your pre-White House self?
Whew. Melania Trump.
Do you think there's still people there that he can't trust?
Yes.
Still working now?
Yes.
Michael Cohen.
So he's still lying?
Yes.
It's a big statement.
And now, in a year with so much on the line, we're right there.
Good evening tonight from Washington, a very busy news night.
America's #1 news source, ABC News, straightforward.
Okay, imagine the morning. I'm talking about a good morning. Imagine starting your day off with friends. What's better than that? You know, like the crazy smart friend who always keeps you in the know. The friend with a huge heart and smile who just makes everything better. Imagine hearing from people who open your eyes and your heart. Imagine knowing what's coming next in the day ahead. Well, I get to live this each morning together with you. Imagine that. How blessed am I? And that's what makes it such a good morning, America.
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch every day.
Okay, so when the New York Times calls you one of the 8 news podcasts worth listening to, well, you just say thank you. So go on, start smart with Start Here, the ABC News Daily Podcast. Take us with you. Listen to us now, free on Apple Podcasts.
Sheriff's Office!
We march together.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
This week, Strahan, Sarah, and our summer co-host Kiki are lighting up lunchtime.
Yes, I love it.
And tomorrow, Olivia Munn joins the party.
Let's go, Kiki.
Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central, and Pacific on ABC. This Sunday, streaming on ABC News Live. Celebrate love.
Celebrate life.
Celebrate history.
Celebrate pride.
Extraordinary access. Incredible stories.
Celebrate.
Celebrate. Celebrate Pride. Streaming on ABC News Live this Sunday starting at 11 a.m. Eastern.
We can live free.
ABC News, America's #1 news source. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
You're listening to an ABC News special, preview to the first Democratic debates. Live from Miami, here is ABC News correspondent Aaron Katursky.
We're less than a half hour away from night 2 of the first Democratic debate. Are you following all this? We've got a billion candidates that are going to be on this stage. Actually, it's 10 tonight. We've told you who's going to be at the center, and Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, and we're going to talk about Bernie Sanders here coming up. But the first night drew an estimated 15 million people. So there's a clear interest in what's going on, and ABC's Beatrice Peterson is with She the People, and she watched with a number of folks who were keenly interested in what these candidates had to say. Beatrice, I know you're back there for the second round tonight, but so far, what are people's impressions?
Well, right behind me at the event venue, there were several hundred people who had gathered to hear what the candidates had to say. A number of people were looking for specific issues. I met a couple of people who were looking for climate change, especially education. But amongst the crowd, a lot of people were undecided. They were still looking for a candidate. Some people had already donated to ensure that some candidates had made it on stage. But I spoke to one man yesterday, and he described himself as a free agent. Although he gives money every month to Senator Kamala Harris, he said he's still waiting to hear what other candidates have to say who he may not know of as intimately as he knows the senator who's from his home state of California.
Beatrice, any sense of anything lacking, that something that these folks want to hear tonight to make sure that the moderators get to?
Well, I mean, there was a number of issues. Some people had brought up reparations. Some people had wished that there was more issues on immigration. But there's a number of voters I spoke to yesterday who had a hard time identifying some of the people on the stage. And they had said that they wished that some of the candidates did a better job in introducing themselves. One candidate in particular was a woman that was on stage. Several women that were in the crowd asked me, who's the woman on the stage? Who is that that's speaking? That woman on the stage was Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Wow, surprising given her front-runner status. All right, ABC's Beatrice Peterson, who is going to be able to give us the perspective of voters as they watch. There's at least one or two candidates who really do need no introduction. We've told you about Joe Biden. The other's Bernie Sanders. And ABC's Mary Alice Parks, our deputy political director, is with us. And in addition, Mary Alice pretty much lived with Bernie Sanders over the course of his campaign the last time. Has he changed at all from one campaign cycle to the next?
No. There's two men on stage who have run for president before, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, and I was thinking a lot about his last run for president. You know, in 2016, his campaign told us that ahead of one of the early debates, they reserved a large hotel suite so that he could practice and rehearse, do some debate prep, and apparently he was furious. He thought it was a waste of money. And so from that point going forward, every time hotels would try to upgrade the candidate, staff would sort of deflect and take the upgraded suite for themselves instead. He's a candidate that doesn't like going personal. He never wanted to run negative ads against Hillary Clinton, but he has that tone, that gruff, where sometimes he comes across a little bit negative, even if what's actually coming out of his mouth is still based on policy and record.
And in that regard, he actually did damage Hillary Clinton's candidacy a bit, perhaps?
Absolutely. I mean, he went very hard against her record. He ran against her vote on the Iraq War, ran against some of her flip-flopping on handling the climate, trade. He wanted to poke at those differences. He wanted to distinguish himself, and we've seen him already start to do that with Joe Biden.
And he felt aggrieved last time by the party, by some of the ways that they seem to favor Hillary Clinton, pushed back against that, and has already started to chafe again at some of the ways that the party is running this campaign, how some of the questioning from reporters have started to say, will you get out of the way this time if it does seem like someone else emerges as a frontrunner? He says, are you asking the other candidates that question? So while he doesn't go personal, absolutely right, Mary Alice, he is also very, very stubborn, and he is insistent that as a democratic socialist, a self-described democratic socialist, he wants to be in this race to the very end.
I was thinking about probably his most famous debate moment in 2016 was in October. The very first debate the Democrats had last go around wasn't until October. But at that first debate, he said, enough with our damn emails. And it got huge applause in the hall that night. The Democratic audience liked that it looked like he was rushing to her defense. But it also speaks to what ticks him off and gets under his skin, which is basically any conversation that isn't about those policy positions and those themes that he likes.
And the enthusiasm is still with Bernie Sanders, even if the polling is with Joe Biden.
But it's tracking in the wrong direction, I would say. He hasn't been able to show that he has much ability expanding his base. That said, his base sticks with him. They love him. We've seen that. We go out in the field and he does an event. He leaves, he walks through the streets, and he gets mobbed with support. People that really like him and really like what he stands for are going to be with him till the bitter end.
And we've seen, Mary Alice, some of the candidates around Bernie Sanders try to pick off some of his supporters, like Bernie Light, somebody like Pete Buttigieg, who says Bernie Sanders is his mentor, is his hero, is his political model. He has really taken a lot of pages out of that playbook. Elizabeth Warren as well, blow up the system in the same way that Bernie has. So it'll be interesting to see the staying power of that core, even as he struggles to attract a more diverse base too.
The oldest candidate on the stage tonight and the youngest candidate on the stage tonight, Mayor Pete and Bernie Sanders, both really trying to reach out to millennials. That is their base for both of them. It'll be interesting to see whose lines really stick with that young vote.
Separated by 40 years. I mean, it's just stunning. And I was talking to John Hickenlooper here, and he kept using the word, we don't need socialism. We can do things different. If Sanders is attacked directly like that, is he prepared to respond?
He's been attacked about his ideas for 40 years, like you were saying. I think he's pretty good in a debate setting, actually. He speaks with a lot of conviction. He knows those opinions of his. He knows his policy backwards and forwards, largely because it hasn't really changed. So I think he is prepared for that. But I'm not sure that the other candidates are prepared for his attacks. You know, I'm not convinced that Joe Biden will be able to capitalize on this moment. There's an argument that someone like Joe Biden should try to distinguish themselves from Bernie Sanders. You know, why not go out there and say, I don't agree with the far left of this party over X, Y, and Z. But so far, Joe Biden's team says that he's not really planning to do that. He wants to hug it out.
Hug it out. Oh, it was a fascinating moment that we heard from Joe Biden today, that if anybody attacks him directly, Devin, he's going to give him a hug.
Peace, love, and harmony. We saw a little bit of it last weekend in South Carolina when he gave Cory Booker a big hug after their tiff over those comments. That's what he will say, but to Mary Alice's point, it's not clear that will be the case tonight. We will likely see, I think Bernie Sanders is the #1 candidate on the stage tonight to watch in terms of throwing elbows, taking a tough line. He will be the one that's toughest, I think, on Joe Biden.
Devin, Mary Alice, we are about 20 minutes away from night 2 of the Democratic debate with Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden right there together, flanked by 8 other candidates. I'm Aaron Katursky, and you're listening to live coverage from ABC News.
ABC News, straightforward. Okay, let's be straightforward about these facts. More Americans wake up to GMA than any other morning show, period. That's 6 years in a row running, with GMA as America's most watched morning show. And for 2 straight years, GMA has been honored winner of the Emmy for Outstanding Morning Show.
Thank you at home.
Robin, George, Michael, GMA. We get it. In times like these, to be the trusted place more Americans come to start their day, well, let's just say it's an honor and an adrenaline rush. And we know we can't do it without you.
We just want to say how thankful we are.
So thank you for helping make GMA America's most watched morning news show.
Come on now.
We are GMA.
Finally, one last thing. Where would we be without listening?
Damn!
Please include that.
Doctors. Matatas. Ismail? Yes. David.
Over ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home.
David, nice to meet you.
This was your view.
My favorite view.
These guys appreciate it. What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch every day.
We march together.
The most powerful stories of our time, anytime. Nightline.
ABC News, straightforward.
Okay, so when the New York Times calls you one of the 8 news podcasts worth listening to, well, you just say thank you. So go on, start smart with Start Here, the ABC News Daily Podcast. Take us with you. Listen to us now, free on Apple Podcasts.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now imagine getting your news like that. No bull, no spin, just give it to me straight. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
Tomorrow, kick off your weekend with Pop Idol superstar Adam Lambert. In a live summer concert from Central Park, it's Adam Lambert. Tomorrow only on
Good Morning America.
Presented by King's Hawaiian.
Listen, it is very rare that you hear of a father reeling in his own children to rob banks with him.
How did such a normal family turn into bank robbers, waving pistols and driving getaway cars?
They knew exactly what they were doing.
Now, astonishing new interviews, new details, and just when you think you know the whole story,
It doesn't end there.
A Family Affair, the 2020 documentary, Friday at 9/8 Central on ABC. ABC News honored winner of 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards, including the most prestigious honor, Overall Excellence in Television. ABC News, America's #1 news choice.
You're listening to an ABC News special, preview to the first Democratic debates. Live from Miami, here is ABC News correspondent Aaron Katursky.
We're about 15 minutes away from night 2 of the first Democratic primary debate here in Miami. We're with Devin Dwyer and ABC News political analyst Matt Dowd. Matt, based on what we've heard so far, Donald Trump have anything to worry about? Any of these Democrats so far land a significant blow?
Well, I think Donald Trump has to worry about Donald Trump first, because he walks into this race as a president seeking re-election with a rather low job approval rating. So he's already vulnerable. I don't think we're going to see exactly how this Democratic field shapes up and who's the strongest for quite a while. It's going to have to go through a series of debates. I recall that in 2007, at this time, Barack Obama was way behind, and nobody had a sense of how good of a candidate he was, and it took a lot of debates and a lot of campaigning before he got there. So I think give it time. I think, last night we saw Elizabeth Warren. I think she did really well in the first quarter of those debates last night. And tonight's a big deal because Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. But I don't think the Democrats yet know the strongest possible candidate they have.
Matt, do the candidates tonight, night 2, have an inherent advantage because they saw the questions, they heard the questions being asked on night 1? Is this something that the party's going to have to account for here, that these guys basically know what the NBC moderators are going to ask?
Well, I would assume that the moderators are going to adjust it somewhat so they're not going to be overly repetitious. But I think one of the big advantages they have is that what was not really discussed last night, and what was not really discussed was a full-throated, confrontation of Donald Trump. So I think it gives a number of the candidates an opportunity, because there was only a few side swipes on the president. And as I said last night, President Trump is the driving factor of what the Democrats want to deal with. Yes, they care about issues, and yes, they want to do certain policies. But the organizing principle is they want to get rid of Donald Trump. So I think the opening they have is what the Democrats didn't do as much last night, which is go after Donald Trump.
All right, we'll see the tone and tenor. ABC News political analyst Matt Dowd. And we're also here with our chief congressional correspondent, ABC's Mary Bruce. Mary Bruce, it's good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
One of the other things the candidates didn't do last night was mention Joe Biden.
Yeah.
His name didn't come up at all.
Not once.
Was that a surprise to Biden?
I think if it was a surprise, I'm guessing it was a pleasant surprise. And I actually was speaking with some of his campaign aides earlier today, and their response is, look, candidates have a limited amount of time. You're going to have just minutes in these 2 hours to make your case. You have to choose wisely how you use that time. And last night, obviously, those candidates decided not to spend that time addressing someone who wasn't on the stage, even though he is the early frontrunner. That is not going to happen here tonight, I don't think.
No,
he is right there, front and center, glaringly, I think, the biggest target on the stage, and they know that.
And as often as he's done this, he's never quite done it in this way. He's debated Sarah Palin. He's debated Mike Pence. He's never debated Democrats like this.
No, and that's the thing. Everyone keeps pointing out, look, Biden has a lot of debate experience. And he does. He has decades of it. But not in this way. In fact, think about the last time when he had to face off with other Democrats. It was 2007. Well, things have kind of changed since then. So he has a lot of experience at debating, but he's used to going one-on-one, and he's used to going toe-to-toe with someone from the other party. And, while we're talking about timing, this is not always Joe Biden's strong suit, right? He is known for being a bit long-winded. He's known also for for being a bit of a gaffe machine. I think of this because there's that moment in that 2007 debate where he was asked this, you're criticized for being long-winded. What do you think of that? He just gave a one-word answer, and the whole crowd, erupted laughing. But it's going to be a challenge for him tonight. Minutes to make your case.
Not even 8 minutes, potentially.
No, last night Cory Booker had the most amount of time, and he only had 10 minutes. That's nothing.
ABC's Mary Bruce is here, and let's pull Steve Roberts into the conversation, the ABC News political analyst. So what's Joe Biden's challenge? What's his primary challenge tonight, Steve?
I think he has to convince voters that his time has not passed. He would be by far the oldest president. As I said earlier, so much of his campaign is based almost on nostalgia for the good old days, not just the days of Obama's administration, but he keeps talking about his 36 years in the Senate, the friendships he had. And look, I think he is right in saying that this was a very positive thing in American politics, a sense of bipartisanship, a sense of civility. But he really risks coming across as out of touch. And if you look at history, it's so clear that the Democrats who were successful, the Obamas, the Clintons, the Carters, the Kennedys, they're always forward-looking. They're always able to say, I'm part of a new generation of leadership. I'm part of a change in the way America does politics. And this plagued Hillary Clinton 4 years ago, 2 years ago, no matter how much she talked about being a change agent, people didn't believe her. So Biden has to accomplish this. He has to convince people he really can change, and change going forward, not just going backward.
All right, ABC News political analyst Steve Roberts, Devin Dwyer's here, Mary Bruce is here, and we are now just, less than 10 minutes away from the start of night 2 of the Democratic debates. Good to have you along. You're listening to live coverage from ABC News.
ABC News, straightforward.
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
To the right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch every day.
Okay, America, things are gonna get good. Good conversation, good info, good food, good deals, even a good pair of shoes. Get more good in every day. News, inspiration, fashion, community. The new GoodMorningAmerica.com. Oh, that's good. OMG good. We hear you. We feel you. We're with you. The new GoodMorningAmerica.com. That's putting the G in good.
As we fly over ground zero.
Almost every home here has sustained damage. Everything has just been wiped out.
Glad you're okay.
Oh, thank you.
You could hear the gunfire just around this wall. So this is one of those checks. Around the corner here are the children. What's your name? Back on the job.
Back in the job.
Help build my country back.
How are you?
How you doing?
Good to see you.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now, imagine getting your news like that. No bull, no spin, just give it to me straight. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then you change the world.
If she had made this work, she would have been the next Steve Jobs.
It's the stunning documentary millions and millions watched. Now see for yourself what everyone is talking about. The Dropout, now on Hulu.
This Sunday, streaming on ABC News Live. Celebrate love.
Celebrate life.
Celebrate history.
Celebrate pride.
Extraordinary access, incredible stories.
Celebrate.
Celebrate.
Celebrate Pride. Streaming on ABC News Live this Sunday starting at 11 a.m. Eastern.
We can live free.
ABC News, America's #1 news source. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
You're listening to an ABC News special, preview to the first Democratic debates. Live from Miami, here is ABC News correspondent Aaron Katersky.
Night 2 of the Democratic debate is about to start. Let's get a couple of final thoughts. First, ABC News political analyst Steve Roberts. What are you going to be listening for tonight, Steve?
I'm going to be looking to see whether Joe Biden can generate a sense of excitement. Uncle Joe, good old Joe, those are good things. They're not enough. He's got to generate a passion that so far hasn't been there. And the second thing I'm going to be watching is how confrontational Bernie Sanders gets. He did a lot of damage to Hillary Clinton in 2016. Is he going to do the same kind of damage to Joe Biden? He's a man full of grievance. Is that going to come out tonight? Those are the things I'm going to be looking for, Aaron.
The candidates have now taken their place on the stage. ABC's Brad Mielke with a final thought. Brad?
And right now, Aaron, you had the candidates coming on stage. They've been shaking hands, and this is the part of the night where the candidates aren't allowed to come out with notes. They're not allowed to bring anything with them. So they run to their podium that has markers and cards so they can write during their, and they write out all their money lines, all their pull quotes. That's what they're doing right now as they're being introduced, and the crowd is getting their final instructions to be quiet. No one's going to, and we'll see what happens as they get ready to debate these issues.
All right, Brad, and ABC's Devin Dwyer here with us in the spin room where they'll tell us how they did, a little while
That's right, and the spin has even begun. The noise is being pumped in here, Aaron. There's two things I'm going to be watching for tonight. Number one, this is the first big test for the millennial candidates. The first time ever we will see two presidential candidates in their 30s on a debate stage. Of course, Pete Buttigieg, Eric Swalwell of California. Fascinating to see how they're sized up against these statesmen of American politics. Bernie, Joe Biden in their 70s. And I'm also going to be watching this debate, ideological debate from the party, head versus heart. Which will win? The party's going to have to solve this debate by the time this primary season is over. And will we get any tea leaves on which way they'll go tonight?
Is it the centrist, pragmatist approach, or is it a turn and maybe even a sharp turn to the left?
That's right. A blow up the system, follow your heart, follow that party energy, or will they stick with that centrist, moderate approach of Joe Biden?
That was in rather sharp relief. It must become sharper tonight, you'd think, with Biden and Sanders right there.
Those are the two guys to watch tonight on the head versus heart debate, if you will. The go big, go bipartisan compromise, that's Joe Biden. How will he make the sell for a less than big, bold Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders vision tonight? We'll see if he can do that convincingly.
And then, of course, the wild cards and Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand, in many ways looking for their moment in the sun.
That's right. We're talking about three white men here on this show in the middle of the stage, but let's not forget about those women. And one woman of color who came hot out of the gate, drawing huge crowds in California. This is a big moment for her. Kamala Harris of California. Can she break through?
All right, Devin, we're going to see what happens just moments from now as night 2 of the Democratic debate begins. And then, of course, all the talking about it as the candidates head right back out onto the campaign trail in this busy election season. For my colleagues, I'm Aaron Katersky. You've been listening to live coverage from ABC News.
When breaking news changes the world, ABC News, accurate, credible, and unmatched. On Twitter @ABC News Radio.